All right, so what I have here is a sort of me working out the solutions for the homework. So if you have questions, hopefully you can look here and figure out either what you did wrong or if you're completely lost. Hopefully this will be helpful for you. All right, so homework question. The first thing, I think this is the trickiest type. You have to create a Venn diagram to demonstrate the following: people who like hamburgers, people who like hot dogs, and then they give you a whole bunch of information right here. We have 50 people total. We have 28 who like hamburgers, 16 that like hot dogs, and 12 that like hamburgers and hot dogs. And this last part's the tricky part. You know, the people that like hamburgers and hot dogs, they've already been counted up here. So we have to be very careful when making our Venn diagram. All right, well, when you make your Venn diagram, the first thing you're going to want to do is sort of make a box. And we're going to make sort of two rings inside this box. And we're going to say, okay, this ring right here represents sample A or set A. That's the people who like hamburgers. And this over here will be B, the people who like hot dogs. All right, so we have 28 people total who like hamburgers, 16 people who like hot dogs, and 12 who like hamburgers and hot dogs. This first thing, even though I said this is going to be sort of the tricky part, it's also the easiest thing to label in the diagram. We have 12 people in the middle here that like hamburgers and hot dogs. Okay, so now let's go to how many people just like hamburgers. All right, we have 28 who like hamburgers, but 12 of those people also like hot dogs. We only want to write the people right here that only like hamburgers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the number of people who like hamburgers and subtract out the number of people who like the hamburgers and the hot dogs. 28 minus 12 is 16. And that's what goes here. All right, that's the number of people who just like hamburgers, because there's 12 of those people who like hamburgers and hot dogs. Same deal over here with the people who just like hot dogs. There were 16 people who like hot dogs, but 12 of those people liked both. So I'm going to take the 16 people, subtract out the 12. 16 minus 12 is 4. So we have 4 people who just like hot dogs. And hopefully, you know, what you have here kind of makes sense. So in ring A, you have 16 plus 12. There are 28 people who like hamburgers, which is what this says. In this ring B, we have 12 plus 4, 16 people who like hot dogs. That's what we had written here. And then in the middle, we just have the 12, and that represents the 12 people who like both. All right. We also need to put a number sort of outside the ring, sort of just down here in the corner of the box that lets us know how many people don't like hamburgers or hot dogs. So there were 50 people surveyed. There were 16 who only like hamburgers, 12 who like both, and 4 who only like hot dogs. And so I'm just going to take the 50 and subtract these 3 numbers and figure out how much do we have left on the outside. You probably want to use your calculator. You might be able to do this in your head. It looks like you're going to end up with 18 if you do this correctly. So there are 18 people who were surveyed who don't like hamburgers or hot dogs. So how many people don't like hamburgers or hot dogs? I guess we just answered that. That 18 is coming from that. All right, so now we're going to use our Venn diagram to answer the following questions. I want to make sure y'all can see this. So I'm going to have to go back and forth here between the diagram and the questions. So first off, this probability of A. So what that means is that's all the people in ring A. That's all the people who like hamburgers. So we don't want to just count the 16. We're going to do the 16 and the 12. There are 28 people who like hamburgers. And we already knew that. That was up here in the initial instructions. 28, that was the number of people who liked hamburgers. So what's the probability of B? Basically, how many people are in B? 4 plus 12 is 16. But again, we already knew that up here. There were 16 people who liked hot dogs. All right, so now we have the intersection. What is the number of people who like hamburgers and hot dogs? What is the intersection of those two things? So we want to count only the people that fit into both of these categories. And so that's our middle part right here. That's our 12. There are 12 people who like hamburgers and 12 people who like hot dogs. And the intersection is the number of people who fit in both sets. Then we have this sort of, this union. So that's all the people who like hamburgers and all the people who like hot dogs. And so that doesn't have to be in both sets. Whatever in set A, we want to include that number. Whatever in set B, we want to include that number. We just have to be careful about counting the middle part twice. So what I mean by that is there are 16 people who like hamburgers, there are 12 people who like both, and there are 4 people who like hot dogs. But I don't want to do another plus 12 for the other 12 here because we're already counting this 12 right here. So I didn't say that great. But again, the point I'm trying to make is just don't count this middle part twice when you're doing a union, okay? The middle part only counts once. We only want to count those people that like both of these things once. 16 plus 12 plus 4, that's going to give you 32. This A prime, remember this A prime is the complement. So this means everybody not in A. Well, there are 28 people in A, and we had 50 people total. So this is just 50 minus 28. It's all the people who don't like hamburgers, all the people who aren't in set A. That's going to give me 22. Let's see here. What is the probability of B prime? So again, this means not in B. All the people who don't like hot dogs. There are 16 people in B. And so we're going to say 50, that's our total amount of people, minus 16, that's going to give us 34. So there are 34 people who are not in set B. All right, and these last two are very tricky. We got to think very carefully about this. So we're doing, this last one, we're doing an intersection. All the people not in A and all the people in B. So we only want to count the people who are not in A and they have to also be in set B. So all the people not in set A would be everything outside of that circle A, but it also has to be all the people in B. And so if I'm looking at this right here, I don't want to ruin my picture, but this is going to be the number of people. It's just going to be 4 people. There are 4 people who are not in A and in B at the same time. That's what this means when we're doing this intersection, okay? It's got to be in both. What are all the people in both of these sets? There are 4 people in there. And this last one, I think, is the trickiest. We're doing a union, so all the people not in A and all the people not in B. Okay, we kind of have already written out these numbers. We have 22 and 34, so we can say there's 20 people not in A and 34 people not in B. But we don't want to add those two numbers together because then we get 56 and there's only 50 people. So what's happening here is we don't want to count stuff twice, okay? We don't want to count people twice. So all the people not in A, I'm going to go up and kind of finally draw on my picture here. So all the people not in A would be all these right here. So notice I didn't include the 16 and the 12 because, you know, there are 22 people not in A, and we already wrote that down here on number 6. But we also want to include all the people not in B, and now notice we're going to have some overlap here. There's a lot of people who are not in B and not in A, so we got to be careful not to count those twice. In fact, the only extra thing that happens here, the people not in B that, you know, we already have the outside box covered, all the people here in A, they also need to be covered. So these people are not in B as well. All right, so we're doing a union, all the people not in A and all the people not in B. That's going to be the 18 people who don't like either, the 4 people who only like hot dogs, and the 16 people who only like hamburgers. And these 12 people in the middle, these are the only people not in this union. These are the only people not in A prime and not in B prime, not in the complement of either. So this is going to be 50 minus 12. So there are 38 people who are not in A and not in B, or not in B. All right, I hope that clears it up. I know this stuff can be very confusing. If you have questions, please email me, and I'll be happy to help you.